of them going a long way and maybe back to the Super Bowl again, and who knows, maybe winning it. But bottom line is, you have to worry just a little bit about their offense. Are they not to the point yet where they need to be? Against Philadelphia, they'll have to score. I don't think a whole lot of points, but they'll have to score. And against a Philadelphia team that has a pretty fair defensive backfield, I think it's going to be a challenge for them tonight.
Yeah, Alec, the Chiefs don't look like the Chiefs offensively. They don't really look like the Chiefs defensively either, because this is a really good defense. How long, and I'll ask this to everybody, we'll start with Alec, though. How long has it been since you've seen a defense like this particular one in the NFL?
Well, I feel like every year you can highlight one or the other that's really playing, and they want to compare them to those defenses of, the Bears of the 80s, the 2000s Ravens, the Steelers in the late 2000s, and, it's just really impressive what they're able to do. They just have been shutting people down and buying the offense time. It's one of those weird, I have to wonder if the offense had to go, or would they be capable of it? If the defense had a night where they did happen to allow 30 points, would the offense just rise to the occasion and look like what we've seen all these years in the Mahomes era, or would they continue to struggle? But, fortunately up to now they haven't had to learn that, and likely they won't need to for most of the season, because I don't see this defense fading down the stretch in any way.
Josh, this has been an amazing run defensively for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I just kind of pick up and piggyback on what Alex said. This offense doesn't look quite right, but the defense, is it good enough to take this team all the way to the Super Bowl?
Well, when I look at their performance week to week, I think they are. I mean, in that sense, I don't want to compare them too much to that Baltimore Ravens team from, when was that?
2020,
when they had Dilfer.
Somewhere
yeah.
Dilfer.
But their defense won them that Super Bowl, because their defense went out and said, "Can you score once?" And they're like, "Yeah." Like, okay, then we'll shut a team out. So all you got to do is score once. I think the Chiefs' defense is on par with that as far as ability this year. They've really come together. Their D-backs are playing out of their mind.
Trent McDuffie's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, at every level, they are excelling. And so, barring injury, I think their defense will put them in a position where they should not lose another game, which makes it even more frustrating as a fan when their offense lays the eggs that they lay on a week-by-week basis, because they have so much talent. They've got Isaiah Pacheco, who he's averaging almost 5 yards a carry, run the ball, and I just don't understand what's going on with the offense anymore. I don't get it.
Ned, you watch football for a long time. This is, I would say, an elite defense, wouldn't you?
Elite, I think, pretty much encapsulates what they have been able to do. Yeah, it's right up there with the Ravens and the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers of the 1960s. Those were teams that thrived on defense. They didn't have to outscore you. They out-hit you, and they did very well. And that's what the Chiefs are doing here. But even more than that, it's their disruptive attitude in the backfield and just taking teams right out of their game plan. That's what's getting it done for them. These teams are out of rhythm when they play. I'm interested to see what Jalen Hurts is able to do. Now, Hurts has I think behind him what's arguably the best offensive line in football. But how good is that offensive line when you're up against a rampaging bunch like Chris Jones and the linebackers? And it's just a very good defensive attack that they put together, and I really feel like that'll be the difference.
And the Chiefs are no slouch at the offensive line either. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has been sacked fewer times than any other quarterback in the NFL. He's not rushed very often. And two things that were at the beginning of this Mahomes era, and we were doing this show 4 or 5 years ago. Two things that we always talked about on the show, and you guys can remind me about this, is offensive line and defense.
Yeah.
And now they're the stalwarts, and the problem is the offense. So let's start with you, Ned. What do you see? What do you think the problem is?
I think maybe attitude has more than anything else to do with it. Physically, I think they're just as good as they always have been. But you have to remember, guys, that in sports, and the same holds true in every professional level, when you're on top for a lengthy period of time, and the Chiefs have been, you get to, it's subconscious, but you get a little lackadaisical in what you're doing, and maybe, again, subconscious, you don't put in the full effort that teams, in this case, need to in every game. You can see it in every level of profession. When somebody's on top, they do tend to fall back a little bit. The aggressive folks like Pete Rose and people like that, when he played baseball, he was always aggressive. Mm-hmm. They are few and far between. That may be, physically, I don't think they have any problems at all. I think they're just a very well-schooled football team, but Andy Reid only has so much control on them. Maybe that's what it is. I'm just guessing.
What about you, Alec?
Well, I've been on this roller coaster ride of one thing's good, one thing's down, and just when you fix it, it seems to flip as a Steeler fan, because in the 2000s, the defense was great, the offense was middling, and they invested in that offense, and they got good skill players and a good offensive line just for all the defensive superstars to age out and the defense to tank, and it just swings. So, you have to live with, you address your problems where you can, but I think that's now what's causing the offense problems is, one, lack of skill players outside of Kelsey. The young guys are still growing. Some we'll see if they have it in them to reach the potential they saw in them when they drafted them. And then two, I think it's a scheme problem. I say problem because, obviously there haven't been bad results, but the lack of commitment to a power running game. Just let your running back go downhill. If they get to 3rd and 1, it's 99% chance they're throwing that football. And if it's a run, it's some sort of gadget swirling hand to the fullback, or let Kelsey do a direct snap and pitch it out to Andy Reid. I don't know. They just they just will not do it when it, they just don't want to do the power running. And I don't know. I think it's just an offensive philosophy. And again, it's hard to complain because results have been great for the past few years. But I think right now that a dose of that would go a long way for them.
Let me throw this out here to you, Josh, and you guys can all comment about this. Do you think maybe the Chiefs, and especially Patrick Mahomes right now, are suffering from they don't have obviously they don't have a Tyreek Hill. I don't think they need Tyreek Hill, by the way. But they don't have a number one receiver other than Travis Kelce. They have a lot of other pieces, though. Do you think that maybe they're suffering from trying to figure out how to work all those pieces in instead of maybe focusing on one or two of these guys besides Travis Kelce?
I think there could be some truth to that because you're right. I mean, they've got a lot of talent, but none of it is, number one receiver talent. None of it is you're always going to know this guy. It's not Amari Cooper. They don't have Amari Cooper. They don't have Calvin Ridley. They don't have guys like that.
You're just naming Alabama guys.
Yeah, I know, because that's all I remember. Alabama
Julio
guys.
Jones.
Nick Saban.
How about Ruggs? Do you remember him?
Ruggs, yeah. But I also think that, kind of alluding to what Ned was saying, they're playing on the house's money, and I think they're playing a little too fast and loose. Like, they're playing sandlot football out there too much. And I don't know if that's Andy Reid just saying go out and play, or if Andy Reid calls a play or the offensive coordinator calls a play and then Mahomes is audibling out of it because he just wants to run around and, throw it 20 yards down the field. I don't know, but it seems like their offense is not structured as much as it was in the past. Like, they're just playing a little too fast and loose.
And I think also what hurts them in a lot of respects is the fact that in most of these games, they've come out and punched the team right in the chops at the very start and taken a lead and said, okay, try and catch us now. I'm interested to see how this one plays out tonight. If Philadelphia gets a lead, and maybe even a big lead. The Chiefs have lost twice this year, the Lions and the Denver Broncos, and it's happened in those games where they have had to come from behind and haven't succeeded in doing that. What do they do when they face adversity? Now that you can say, well, they face adversity every week, and that is true, they do. But by the same token, they have been better and able to meet that challenge from ahead.
Yes.
How can they do it from behind?
You're listening to Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show. We're brought to you by The Dive on Patton, the best place to watch the Chiefs downtown Springfield this season. I just saw a little clip that went up there. Andy Reid's pretty amazing when he comes off a bye week. His record's just sickly incredible.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he said to Patrick Mahomes during this week is trust your eyes, be aggressive, and let it go. Would that be the advice that you would give to Patrick Mahomes?
Not against this team, it wouldn't.
No.
Not at all. This is Hey, I do think Kansas City wins. I think they're quicker and a better team, but Philadelphia is no one to trifle with. They already know that from the Super Bowl when it was a holding penalty that cost them at the end of the game.
And right now, Philadelphia has the best record in football.
They do.
They are 8-1.
Only one loss.
They've only lost once.
What do you think? Do you think the Chiefs that Patrick Mahomes needs to be more aggressive? Or, we've talked about the running game. I'll put it to you two guys.
Well, I feel like it can't hurt when you got a guy like that to just say, hey, let it rip. He's earned the right to say, hey, just go get it. I think this offensive line can keep him upright. He can trust that arm a little bit. But, within reason, we've seen him try some throws, particularly in that Jets game where I feel like he just got in his head and said, I can do that. And then he throws it.
Right.
And from the TV, we go, what are you doing? I was like, that throw just wasn't there to be made. So, I don't know. You're at the top of the AFC. This is a really good opponent coming in, but Kansas City so far this year has put wins up, especially like that Miami win. I think is going to go a long way down the road in the AFC with some of these powerhouses faltering a little bit, be it by injury or lack of performance. Kansas City's already situated themselves in a position to be the front runner in the AFC going forward. Why not let it rip? Why not be aggressive? Why not see if you can get this one and really stack that momentum?
What about you, Josh?
Okay. I will never acknowledge how good the New England Patriots were with Tom Brady. I never will. But the reason those jerks won so many Super Bowls is because they stuck to the plan. They had a game plan. They stuck to it. He didn't let it rip. He let the offense present itself to him, and they were methodical and they were machine-like, and that's why they dominated as long as they did. If you really want the Chiefs to continue winning Super Bowls, you cannot just tell your quarterback, go do what you want, because that was what Brett Favre did, and he didn't win as many championships as Tom Brady.
No. Well, Tom Brady's look, statistically and win-wise, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback who ever played the football game. He was also probably one of the most boring quarterbacks to watch. And you know what? You could take that to another sport, too. One of the most boring NBA teams to watch in history is San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, exactly.
But they won a lot of championships because they stuck to the game plan.
Exactly.
They did what they did. They did it better than other teams. And maybe this is the Chiefs, though. Maybe they do what they do by just going out and slinging it.
Well, you have
time will tell.
That's a valid point. That could be, and it'll work. We have to understand, guys, we're nitpicking here because this team is pretty doggone.
Of course.
Yeah, they're very well. It's strange to watch this season because we have nitpicked.
Yeah,
and it's been the one thing that you wouldn't think going into the season that we would be talking about, and that's the offense, and that's where we're nitpicking at. And all last season, this team seemed to do just enough to win. They've carried that forward into this season. They had a couple of clunkers last year. They've had a couple of clunkers this year. And maybe that's the overall philosophy. Just do enough to win and get us to the playoffs, and then we can turn it on and do whatever we want.
Maybe that's it.
Well, I hope that's true. I mean, they have yet to fail in that endeavor, and so hopefully they can continue to do it. But it is worrisome, because when you see what they are capable of, as far as the offense putting up 30 or 40 or 50 points, and then they don't do that consistently, that's why we nitpick. We have that luxury because they are still winning, but they're not dominating, which is what every fan wants their team to do, is dominate.
I think the funny thing, it just occurred to me while we were sitting here talking, is that the Chiefs offense looks like it's in preseason. The Chiefs defense looks like they're in the playoffs already. They're playing each week like it's a playoff game. And let's roll it back for just a minute. Talk about that Dolphins game. I kind of thought the Dolphins would win that game. Mm-hmm. I really did feel going into it. We didn't do a show. I would have picked the Dolphins to win that game. Tonight I'm going to pick the Eagles to win this game because I just don't think you can turn it on and turn it off. But I was very impressed with that defense. And I just keep hitting that point. A lot of times that defense is going back out there in 4 plays.
Yeah.
Because the Chiefs are going 4 and out. They're not, when they sputter badly and they do not look good at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got that defense that's right back out there and is having to play at a high pace, a high speed during the whole game, because that's part of it. And Ned, you're exactly right. It is not really a defense that's built on getting a lot of turnovers or a defense built on getting a lot of sacks. They are a defense that disrupts. That is the best way to describe it. They're the disruptors.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see if the disruptors come to the fore tonight, because Jalen Hurts is pretty good, folks, and their offensive line is pretty good. Having said that, though, defense wins championships.
It does.
And they have a very good, they being the Chiefs, a very good defense.
All week long, we heard a lot of smack out of, all week before the Miami game, we heard a lot of smack coming out of Tyreek Hill's mouth. See, I remembered. Coming out of his mouth, how gratifying must have been to the Kansas City Chiefs that the big play that turned that game was made against Tyreek Hill by the guy that they were able to draft with the pick that they got from Miami, Trent McDuffie.
I'll tell you what really resonates even more than that is the fact that Hill afterwards said, I got punched in the gut when that happened. Well, he may have been. But nobody called it. Nobody really saw it happen. But I think the Chiefs were more than gratified. I think they, in fact, said, open your mouth again if we play again, because that's what's going to happen.
Almost like it was scripted to be that way.
No.
Let's not go all Vince McMahon on this.
Sometimes the stars just align almost too perfectly. It just seems like you couldn't write that differently. But that play really was the difference. That was a game of two halves. The Chiefs won the first half. The Dolphins won the second half. It was obvious who looked better per half, but there was one big splash play that Kansas City's defense was able to make, and it's a 14-point swing. Dolphins looked like they were going to make that a one-score game going into halftime, and then the defense comes out with that. And, it's the defense is on all levels. They can get pressure with four guys. They don't need to blitz, but they can draw up exotic blitzes with Spags when they need to. Their corners can play press coverage to disrupt guys like Tyreek Hill to not let him clean off the line. And they can have good safeties in the back watching over when you let it slip. It's impressive at all levels. There's not a hole in it. There's no let's go throw at that guy, let's run at that gap, because there's someone really good at football waiting for you at each level wherever you try and go.
I love the blitz with the outside linebacker when he sneaks in and a team can't make a blocking adjustment. Sneaks in, comes. Usually it's around that far, as you're watching the game, that right-hand corner.
Yeah.
He'll come around and zero right in on the QB and nail the hell out of him. That's a well-constructed play.
And they're doing this without Nick Bolton, too. We should point that out. I mean, he's still been injured, and, they played extremely well. The guy they picked up from the Chargers has done an amazing job just filling in the right spot at the right time for Kansas City. It's just been kind of amazing to watch this defense.
Well, Tranquil is not chopped liver. Now, he was All-American at Notre Dame. He can play, and with the Chargers, he's All-Pro. That was a good pickup, you're right, but he's not a Johnny-come-lately. He knows what he's doing.
And as you always point out, Ned, this team has stayed extremely healthy right now.
Yeah.
Nick Bolton is injured. Justin Ross is injured. Got Richie James also out there, but they're looking pretty good as far as the injuries go.
That is another factor that has to be
Huge
addressed.
factor.
The Chiefs are living and it's not a charmed life because they're a good team, but they have lived a blessed life as far as injuries. No really key member of either side, defense or offense, has really been seriously injured. You do have Bolton out of there, that is true, but you have more than enough capable individuals to come in and take his place. So they have been lucky.
And I would say you would probably say it is luck, just because you never know. You get San Francisco last year lost 4 quarterbacks, and that derailed their season. And, ask Cincinnati how life's going to be now that Burrow's gone for the rest of the year. You never know when your time will come, and you just have to keep crossing your fingers that yours doesn't come.
When your time comes, you're making reference to playing football.
Yes.
Not when you're
No.
When you get hurt on the football field, because you will. Everybody does. It's just a matter of when.
It's a war
not
of
an if.
attrition, and these guys do play through little injuries, hoping they don't become major injuries because they want to be on the field.
One of the funniest things I heard this week, it was out of Alex's mouth. They said it looked like Kenny Pickett got hurt during that game. He said, not a big deal. I mean, Mitch Trubisky's not much worse than he is. So what difference does it make?
We're a blessed team. If we lose our quarterback, we're still pretty bad. Yeah. We were already bad to start.
When we come back, we'll talk more football. We'll talk NFL and college football. It's Ned Talk, brought to you by the Dive on Patton.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
We're brought to you by the Dive on Patton Street. It's Ned Talk. We're about 35 minutes away from the start of the Chiefs pregame show. Ned Reynolds, Alex Scott, Joe Westen, Josh Roberts, doing our thing, talking about the Chiefs, talking about sports in general. Let's turn our attention to other things in the world, like college football. How about that?
And it's great, too. We have a terrific match. Now, the bowl rankings will come out tomorrow night. I suspect that Missouri, I'm going to suspect this, will probably remain number 9. I don't think they'll drop any, but they escaped with the hair of their chinny chin against a Florida team. Actually, that's a misnomer. It's Floria, because there is no D in Florida. I mean, that 4th and 17 play that I saw was absolutely an atrocity. How in the world that can happen, I'll never tell you, but it did, and Missouri was able to parlay that into a win. The top 4 teams probably will remain the same. Now, keep in mind that the Bowl Championship Series, the poll itself, is subjective. You have a committee. It's not done by computer or anything like that. Do they penalize? Unfortunately, they may, Florida State, for the key injury that they have. If that's the case, then Washington will drop in there. I don't think they'll do it now. It will probably come. Well, Florida still has Florida State to play, and then a playoff game in the ACC. So anything can happen. You don't have your star player. That can be costly. And the Ohio State-Michigan game is this Saturday. There will be a loser in that one. It, I think, depends on how much of a loss, whether or not the loser drops out of the Bowl Championship Series. But for this year, it's significant. Next year, moot point, because there will be 12 teams involved, and therein lies the difference.
What do you think, Josh? I know you're a big college football proponent. You're a big fan. So what do you think? I know you were, before we turned on the mics, you were complaining about that team in Michigan.
Yeah, well, do we want to get into that? Okay,
yeah,
let's
go
get
ahead.
into
Yeah,
that.
let's talk about it.
I feel like, and I was talking to Ned about this, I feel like every game where they can prove that guy was on the sideline stealing the signs from the opposition, they should have to forfeit those games. Mm-hmm. That's only fair. That's the penalty that should happen, because that Michigan, first of all, Michigan was good enough that they didn't need to cheat, but they cheated anyway, because that's what Jim Harbaugh does. He is a turd. And but they didn't need to cheat because they're Michigan. They have great recruiting classes. They have great teams anyway, but they chose to cheat for whatever reason, and now they've gotten caught, and so far all that's happened is Jim Harbaugh has been suspended. That does nothing. That is not a punishment. You know, the players are probably happy he's not there. What they should do is they should make them forfeit all those games. If they can prove that guy that stole all those signs was on the sideline, which I've seen still shots of him at several of those games, they should have to forfeit all those games. And then that takes care of that.
How did he get on the sideline for those games?
I don't think he was on sidelines. I think he was in the stands. He paid to get in.
I think he was on the sidelines, Ned. At the Purdue game specifically, he was putting, like, what he would do is he would put on gear for that team, like a Purdue hat and a Purdue, shirt, and he had some kind of credentials that got him on the sideline.
I thought the Purdue was it not in Ann Arbor?
I can't remember for sure. I don't know. I don't mean when they played each other. He was scouting these teams before Michigan played them.
I've got you. Okay.
And so he was going to, like, Purdue's playing some other team. He was on the sideline with Purdue during that game, stealing their signs and everything. Anyway, Michigan should be out of it. Gone. Out. They should not.
Oh, and who would slot into that spot, Josh?
Well, it wouldn't be Alabama because they're only 8th. So it would take some losses to get them up there. Alabama's best chance is if they win the SEC championship and beat Georgia.
Georgia.
Which Can happen. I mean, Georgia looks beatable now more than they did at the beginning of the season. So who knows? Mizzou could have beaten Georgia. I watched that whole Georgia-Mizzou game. I was really impressed with Mizzou. They played great football. They had the opportunity to win that game, and then they just kind of blew it. But that's testament to Georgia's ability or the youth and inexperience of Mizzou. But that was a really good game.
The players not wanting Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines. Come on, he's not Josh McDaniel. Oh, was that a cheap shot? Is it too soon?
No, it's not too
Is
soon.
it too soon? Let's go to Alec for just a second here and talk about it. I mean, you're a Mizzou fan. You got to be loving this, right?
It's been a fun season. I think that was potentially a page-turning win on Saturday because that just felt like a game I'm used to seeing Mizzou lose. The whole game I had bad vibes. Like this, just here we go. What did we do last week? We ran ranked Tennessee out of the stadium. What are we going to do this week at home on senior night? Lose to unranked Florida because that's just what Mizzou has done in my time following. But they actually pulled out the win. And even in their losses this year, they've looked competitive. A loss to Georgia in Georgia. There's no shame in that. Lost to LSU. Jaden Daniels they don't have the record, but he's probably been the most valuable player in college football for a team this year. So it's been fun. I think if Mizzou can handle business against Arkansas, they'll be playing on New Year's Day, and that's exciting. Top 4 is going to be fun to see shake out if Ohio, notwithstanding the whole scandal, what's actually going to happen. If there's any punishment for Michigan, it's going to be in 5 years, and they'll take away some wins. But if that's a close game on Sunday, it will stay close. The teams I feel for right now is going to be one of either a Washington if they stay undefeated and don't make it, or a one-loss Oregon with a loss to Washington. I think those are two very good teams. And I do think that Florida State's going to get knocked for losing their quarterback and drop to 5 when these rankings come out tomorrow, because that is substantial, and they might have a guy waiting in the wings that can handle it.
I don't want you guys to overlook Josh's favorite team, because I fully agree if they should beat Auburn in the final game, and if they are able to beat Georgia, and that's not beyond doubt by any stretch of the imagination. Alabama's good, real good. I can see the bowl committee getting them in there. It's Alabama.
I feel like, I'm an SEC homer, so I'm biased, but I feel like the winner of the SEC will be in the top 4.
Guaranteed.
So it's going to be either Georgia or Alabama. I think, the Ohio State-Michigan game decides which of the Big Ten teams is going to be in the top 4. Because
don't forget, there is a championship game.
Right, but it won't matter at that point, I don't think.
You mean to tell me you see Iowa losing?
Yes.
Iowa can't score, but they're still
they'll
going to
lose 3-2.
I think Washington,
battle.
if Washington wins out, Washington will be in the top 4 as well. So then you're going to have the SEC champion, you're going to have the Big Ten champion, you're going to have Washington as long as they win out, and then I guess you're going to have the ACC champion.
Oh, well, I think that no matter what happens in that Ohio State-Michigan game, those two teams are in.
You think both of them will stay?
Yeah, because they love that.
Maybe, but if
possible.
it's a blowout, if it's a big win, no, I see the loser dropping out.
Well, I think that would be the one set of circumstances, but it's going to be the TCU situation from last year. They want that team there. So I don't think that's going to make a bit of difference that game. They might as well not play it.
And precedent has shown that you're right on that, because a lot of times when top 4 teams play each other, the loser, if it's a close enough game, they don't change much at all as far as ranking. The problem is this time of year when they've got the conference championship games, you've got to give some credit to those conference champions. So if a Washington wins the Pac-10 or Pac-50, whatever they are at this point, if Washington wins that and Ohio State wins the Big Ten and whoever the SEC champion is, I think they're in. And then that 4th one could be up in the air. It could be the ACC champion. It could be a second Big Ten team. Or, if Alabama loses to Georgia, they're not going to be in the top 4.
Even last year, though, TCU got in by virtue of a blowout loss by Ohio State. Michigan ran them out of the building last year, and it caused Ohio State to drop far enough. Its final score is going to be everything. If it's a close game, I think they both stay, and I don't know if I can even argue against that. If the number 2 team loses a close game at number 1, does that make them not the number 2 team anymore?
Only if they're cheating.
And then, throwing all that out, this is why Mizzou will jump to number 1 at the end of the year.
Go Mizzou.
Real quickly, let's just go around and get your thoughts. Is Ohio State the best team in the country? They're number 1 in the rankings. Best team, Ned.
Well, again, it's all subjective because you have strength of schedule to consider into this. You have levels of victory. Ohio State, Notre Dame, which is really kind of a little bit better than average team, took them right to the wire. So how do you make a judgment on who is the best team? Well, you have to go to the championship finals, and whoever comes out of that, comes out of the bowl series with a win, hey, they're the champions. I don't think it's fair to categorize one team as being the best one because of the numbers of variables and the level of parity that we have in college football.
What do you think, Alec?
Give me the team that hasn't lost in almost 3 years. Give me Georgia. I think you got to – and, there was a time this year where Ohio State's resume was the most impressive of all these teams at the top. So I felt they deserved that number 1 spot. But as Georgia's mowed through their SEC schedule and stacked up some good wins, but it's going to get real interesting if Alabama beats them, an undefeated Georgia, how they stack these 4. Because do you drop Georgia all the way from 1 to 5 and then sweep Alabama in there? And who do you kick out? There's a potential, all the major conference championships, they all go undefeated, and someone's got to miss it. And I don't know who they're going to pick.
What do you think, Josh?
Georgia's the best team in college football. Ohio State, just like every year, they're overrated. Michigan's overrated. Washington's overrated. Notre Dame's overrated. I mean,
who's not overrated, Josh?
Alabama.
No, Georgia. Georgia's underrated. Georgia should still be the number 1 team in the nation. It's silly that they're number 2. They haven't lost in almost 3 years now.
Yeah. Well, everybody loves the SEC.
Everybody hates the SEC.
Everybody loves Ohio State and Michigan. When we come back, we'll talk a little baseball because that wrapped up while we were gone. It's Ned Talk, brought to you by The Dive. I'm Patton.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
We are 19 minutes away from the start of the Chiefs pregame show right here on 104.7 The Cave, your home for the AFC leading Kansas City Chiefs. Show's brought to you by The Dive on Patton, the best place to watch the Chiefs downtown this year. Joe Westen, Ned Reynolds, Alex Scott, Josh Roberts, and the Lance Lynn era restarts in St. Louis. This is one of the best times in all off-season sports is the hot stove league. I heard an ESPN guy say, that's why football is so great. Their off-season's spectacular, and it's not. It's not as good as the hot stove, which is the best. And it still is. And it's kind of sad to say that baseball itself is not as exciting as the hot stove, but so here we are in the hot stove. What do you think?
I can tell you one thing, that we don't have the hot stove in here because I'm freezing to death. We need that hot stove.
We'll give you a hug. We'll warm you up. So what do the Cardinals need to do to get better?
Well, get pitching, of course. Now, did they get good pitching with Lance Lynn? He was 13-11 this year, and pretty fair with Chicago White Sox, who didn't need him, and the Los Angeles Dodgers, who did need him. But then he also got lit up by some teams. From the Diamondbacks, who had 6 hits and 4 home runs against him in about 2 or 3 innings, something like that. He's 37 years old. Began his career with the Springfield Cardinals. He was down here with us for about a season and a half, and a very good pitcher. He was in his prime, of course, from I think he ended up with the Cardinals in 2017, if I remember correctly, 2011 to 2017, and had some very good outings. Is he beyond his prime? Well, he's not going to be a stopper. There's no question about that. He's he just doesn't have that kind of power nor consistency anymore. But it is the start. I think you see the Cardinals make a few more deals. Aaron Nola will not be one of them. He re-signed with Philadelphia. But there are some others out there who could be really big stars, including Yasumoto, the kid from Japan, who is not a majorly proven capability, but is obviously pretty good because they're willing to shell out big bucks for this guy. So a lot of barriers to be overcome, and I think the Cardinals will do well to get maybe 2 pitchers out of this.
You know, the hallmark of this offseason is there's no major superstar on the market that would be team-changing out there at all. I mean, nobody, right?
Well, Shohei Ohtani is.
Oh, I was joking, Ned.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay.
Joe doesn't want to talk about Shohei
What about that
Ohtani.
guy?
He, I heard the rumors now that the New York Mets are going to probably court him with a lot of money. I think he ends up on the coast with the Dodgers. That's probably the best place.
The Dodgers.
Well, the rich get richer.
They got money.
Well, what did they have? 101 wins this year, and they didn't get into they got knocked out. So you never can tell the way the playoff system works now. But by the same token, it won't hurt to have a guy like that.
What do you see, Alec? You're a die-hard Cardinal fan. You bleed Cardinal red, which is what most people bleed anyway.
Mm-hmm. Same as you.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you see? What are you hoping that the Cardinals do? What free agents pique your interest? What rumors are you hearing?
You know, what I'm hoping is just the era of baseball we're in now, you got to spend money. Unless you're the Tampa Bay Rays with the best farm system top to bottom in baseball, you about have to spend or you're not going to go anywhere. So Nola might not have wanted to leave Philly, but I was sad to see that deal break because he was a guy I wanted to see the Cardinals get. The guy coming out of Japan, he said Yasumoto coming out. There's been rumors of him hanging out with Lars Nootbaar. If he needs a bag of money, give him a bag of money because seeing us go get Lance Lynn while a fun reunion looks to me like more bargain bin shopping by the Cardinals, and all of a sudden you have a starting 5 pitching rotation that all of those guys would be a solid 3rd or 4th option on a really good pitching stacked team. And if that's what we have again, then we're looking at a very similar season. Probably not as bad as this past one because this past one, the April that the Cardinals had, that's hard to replicate. It's almost never going to be that bad. That's just hard to be that bad.
That's wishful thinking.
But a 500 season and missing the playoffs, very doable if this pitching staff doesn't get better. So names aren't coming to mind at the moment past what I wanted Nola and Yasumoto. But at this point, just if there's arms to be had, just spend the money. I know we're not going to get Shohei, and he might not even be pitching again this next upcoming season. So I understand that that's off the table, but just be willing to spend because if a team like the Padres, who definitely make less than the Cardinals, are willing to go load up on their roster, St. Louis can do it too.
Do you see Juan Soto moving?
No, I don't. I think he stays in San Diego because his price tag is too high. I know the Padres would like to unload him. They've already said so. They want to reduce their payroll, but no, I don't see him moving it on because the team has to accept the contract that he's working under, and that is a very lucrative one indeed.
Gosh, I wish there was a major market team that could accept that contract. That's one of the most valuable franchises in all of sports.
It has a storied history.
The New York Yankees, you mean?
Oh, yes.
If only we could find one. But they just
don't fall off
as
trees.
a Cubs fan, I have a comment about this Lynn thing. This is another example of what I always say about the Cardinals. They have this misplaced loyalty to players. I feel like the reason he's a Cardinal again is because they like him. Not because he's going to do anything good for them. But he's 37 years old. You said he was 13 and 11?
This year, yeah.
Yeah. That is not what the Cardinals need. But, hey, keep it up, guys. I'm proud of you.
I could hear the phone call. Hey, Lance, we like you.
We like you.
We like you.
You want to come and play with us again?
You're not Aaron Nola, but you know what? You'll do.
And keep in mind now, the Cardinals do have some young pitchers who they are developing, and we've seen them down here. But, again, they're a work in progress. They are not finished products yet.
What about the Royals, Ned? Silence.
That's about the Royals.
And there you have
dead air.
You know what I miss? I miss UL Washington.
Oh, my. You are going back into years.
I miss Willie Wilson.
You miss
George Brett.
I miss
The guy
George
playing with
Brett
a
and the
toothpick
Pine
in his
Tar
mouth?
incident. I
Yeah.
miss that Royals era.
I do think the Royals are probably staying in place right now because of the young talent they have, and they don't want to get rid of any of that. So will they be as bad? I don't think they will be. I think they'll be, who knows whether or not they'll be competitive or not, but I don't think they'll have quite the catastrophic year they had this year.
Well, Hot Stove League will go on. Just real quickly, Ned, this has been kind of a protracted process over the last few years. Do you see that being this way this year, or do you see signings coming a little quicker
For the Cardinals?
for a baseball period?
Well, last year, they dragged them right out almost to the very beginning of spring training. Again, I think a lot of it has to depend on what the demands are from the players, how much the teams are willing to spend. The Cardinals have to be, and I agree with Alec, they've got to spend some money. That's how you do it in today's times. The days of your old favorites staying with the team because of free agency, they don't exist anymore. So you've got to shell out to get the talent.
Thanks, Kurt Flood.
He's the guy who started it. He sure did. So
All right.
again, but if they don't spend the money, they ain't going anywhere.
When we come back, we'll have our picks for tonight's game. It's Ned Talk brought to you by The Dive. I'm Patton.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
We are just moments away from the start of the Chiefs pregame show. Right here on 104.7 The Cave. Kickoff tonight right around 7:25. Is that the time, Ned, that they do?
In between 7:15 7:25, depending.
That's what's going to happen. You've got your night planned. Be right here with us. And remember, you can tune in and listen to the game and watch it. You can listen to it right here on 104.7 The Cave and listen and watch it on TV. It's so much better that way. You don't have to listen to Joe Buck. Okay? Need I say more? Joe Buck. Okay? Just going to leave it right there. All right, it's time for our picks. Two of the four of us have already made picks without a score, but Ned, you have picked the Chiefs to win tonight.
I picked the Bears to beat Abilene Christian tonight in the Paradise Jam.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears. Go Bears.
I think,
okay.
as you guys know, I bleed green. They're my boyhood team, but I can't pick Philadelphia. Kansas City, too much quickness on defense, and I think the Chiefs win in a, relatively speaking, close game.
What's the score?
I'm going to say the Chiefs win it 31 to 28, somewhere in that vicinity.
31-28. Okay, I like that one. All right. What about you, Alec?
I've been telling you at work this week, Joe, in a rematch of the Super Bowl, give me the loser. They're going to want it more. I think this means more to Philadelphia because they've got some demons to exercise. Kansas City gets to hang the banner, and they don't. I think Jalen Hurts' athleticism as a quarterback is something Kansas City's defense hasn't seen yet this year. And while I don't think it's going to give them a ton of trouble because I think this is a low-scoring game, I think it's enough. So I'm going to go Philadelphia, and I'm going to go 20-17.
Jalen Hurts is hurt, by the way.
Just had a
let's just
lingering
mention
knee
that.
injury, but he's played with it. So.
Yeah.
And he's also had a week off.
And what about you, Mr. Roberts?
Man, I don't want to pick Philadelphia to win, but I just have a feeling. I mean, they're 8-1 for a reason. They do have the chip on their shoulder because they lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. The Chiefs' offense is not firing on all cylinders. I'm going to go Philadelphia 28, Chiefs 24.
All right, that's three of the four of us going green tonight. And the guy from Philly, that honestly, I've seen him. He bleeds green.
Yeah,
Sometimes he
does.
bleeds a little brown
Yeah.
because that's the bourbon coming out of him.
Bourbon.
I'm glad you said bourbon. Could have been something.
Well,
I'm accused of being full of it, too.
Let's not go
Keep it
there.
PG
Come
for the
on.
kids,
This is a
man.
family show, Ned. There are people with their children around the radio
Yeah,
right
I'm
now
sure there
listening
are.
to us next to the fire with the stockings hung with care. All right, I'm picking Philly.
A veritable fireside chat, right?
Variable fireside chat. I'm picking Philly 24-21.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a field goal game.
Could be.
And
What's
I think
the spread on this one?
whoever's got the ball last
That
wins.
is 2.5 Kansas City and an over and under 45.
Okay.
So you've got an event you're going to right after this. Is that correct?
Yep.
Tell us just quickly about that event.
Well, it's based on this football game. A friend of mine and we auction off our services at the Bears fundraiser, and it's a group bid high on this one and got it. It's an evening with us watching the Chiefs play on a Monday night. Just so happened to be the Chiefs and the Eagles.
Nice.
Yeah, that'll be very nice.
Ned for hire.
Ned for hire. Ned Reynolds, male prostitute. All right, you got our picks. We're all set. We'll be back on our regular time on Sunday, 1 o'clock right here, Ned.
We are.
Enjoy your evening. Alec, got the in-laws coming over. Josh, what are you doing?
Eating Thanksgiving. Wait, on Sunday I'll be here.
Well, no, what are you doing tonight?
Oh, watching the game.
Where at? With Ben?
Probably at home.
Okay. All right, guys. Enjoy the game. It's getting ready to start right here on 104.7 The Cave, your home for the Chiefs. Thanks once again to Corbett Campbell, Brian Tyndall, Mike the Intern, and Nick Fury. Enjoy Chiefs football.